Good morning and welcome to this UK-India Business Council Access India webinar, Intellectual Property, the Indian Patent System. My name is Ayana Gupta, Research and Communications Executive at UK-India Business Council, and I will be moderating this session. Developing an intellectual property strategy to protect your IP in India is central to your business success. Your IP is a valuable business asset, and an emerging market like India could well be your main competitive advantage. The Indian government is drafting legislation to create new intellectual property codes and simplify drug patent applications. New legislation is just one indication that India is trying to tighten patent protection in line with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's efforts to make it easier for foreign companies to do business in India. In this webinar, we will discuss the changes to India's intellectual property rules and what it means for UK businesses. Before we begin, I would like to familiarize you with the toolbox on the right-hand side of your screens. Just to let you know, everyone will be on mute during the course of the webinar, but if you do have a question, please type it into the little bracket on your toolbox in the Please Type Your Question Here section to send this to me, and I will take it up during our question and answer session at the end. I am delighted to welcome Dr. Vijay Iyer, Senior Intellectual Property Advisor, Intellectual Property Office, our speaker for today's webinar. Dr. Vijay Iyer is a Senior Intellectual Property Advisor with the British Deputy High Commission, Mumbai, India. Vijay is a registered patent agent in India and he supports UK businesses on intellectual property matters. I would now like to welcome Dr. Vijay Iyer for his insights on India's intellectual property rules.
Thank you, Ayana, for that introduction, and good morning to all of you. As Ayana just said, I'm the IP Intellectual Property Attaché for the UK IPO in India. So in my role, I do three things: engage with policymakers at the state and national level, provide support to UK businesses that are either already in India or planning to enter India, and implement intellectual property projects through third parties. And the overall objective of these projects is to improve the IP environment in India and eventually make it sort of easier for UK businesses to operate in India. So that is really my threefold role in this capacity. In terms of the intellectual property projects that we have done recently, I just wanted to highlight these three intellectual property fact sheets. So if you visited that site, you will find loads of information on how to file patents in India, how to protect your designs or trademarks. So I'd encourage you to visit that website. And the information presented there is really brief and user-friendly, so you'll find it really refreshing to have a quick read. The second project was mapping the intellectual property landscape of one of the southern states in India, Tamil Nadu. So that we did that project with one of the trade associations in India, Confederation of Indian Industry. And what that report basically tells you is, the IP filing trends in Tamil Nadu. And if you're a UK business, then you might find it really helpful. And even otherwise, if you're a research organization, you might find that information really handy. And the final one is the IP management toolkit for Indo-UK R&D collaborations. This toolkit lists about 4 template contracts that you can use, when you're thinking about, or if you're already, collaborating with a UK-based organization. So just to set the context, unlike in the UK where, all aspects of intellectual property fall within one umbrella, in India there's a slight bifurcation. So patents, trademarks, designs, and geographical indications are with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, while copyright sits with the Ministry of Human Resource Development. So that's something to keep in mind, if and when you interact with government stakeholders in India. So in terms of the definition of patent in India, it's quite identical to the one in the UK and actually, elsewhere in the world, in that it's valid for 20 years from the date of filing. India is also signatory to the Patent Cooperation Treaty, which means you can use the PCT route, as a placeholder application for priority in India. and of course it gives you exclusivity to commercialize your inventions. The patents in India are governed by the Patent Act 1970, and if you have filed, an application with the Indian Patent Office, and if you're not happy with the decision, you can appeal the decision before the Intellectual Property Appellate Board. Previously, the Appellate Board sat only in Chennai, but now they also have a branch in New Delhi, which is great news. And further down the line, if you're not happy with the decision handed out by the Appellate Board, you can, of course, approach the High Courts in India. Now, jurisdiction, I think this is an important point to keep in mind, when it comes to deciding where to file your application. Of course, the rules are same across India. They don't vary from state to state, but for practical purposes, each patent office in India has been assigned certain jurisdictions. So, for instance, if you're in Mumbai, if you are in the western region of India, say Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, then you're supposed to file your application in Mumbai. So through this presentation, what I really want to do is sort of give you some practical hands-on information that you can use, if and when you plan to file patents in India. So if you go to the Patent Office website, then I just wanted to highlight there's a search function. It says public search for granted patents. So if you clicked on that, you can actually search for published applications. You can search for granted patents. You can look up the agent register, for instance. It's an extremely practical tool, and I'd recommend that you use it for doing your initial patent searches, prior art searches, and to see who has filed what in India. There is an advanced version available now. It's called InPass, the Indian Patent Advanced Search System. It's a great tool for you to do some background research, some background search before you make that filing. Fee, of course, is one of the big questions that most firms have, if and when they plan to enter India. So again, all information is available on the website. So if you clicked on the fees link there, it'll give you essentially a listing of all kinds of fees that you would pay, if you are a lone inventor versus if you were a big organization. There have been a raft of reforms and changes that the Patent Office has introduced recently. And I'm sure you might be aware that the Patent Office appointed a new Controller General in November 2014. And since November 2015, I'm sorry. And since he has joined, a number of things have happened, and things are actually moving in the right direction for good. So this was one of the developments that happened last month. In that they've revised the examination guidelines for computer-related applications, and the final version has been put up on the website, to get feedback for the public, essentially. So, according to the new rules, you cannot get a software patent in India if it's just software. However, if the software is claimed in conjunction with a novel hardware, then yes, then your application will proceed to examination. But if you're just claiming a software, a patent, then that is no longer possible. So I'd encourage you again to look up the guidelines. It's a very user-friendly document. And the next slide, this is a screenshot from that document, a screenshot of the table of contents. As you can see, terms and definitions have been clarified, the examination procedure has been laid out, and they've also included, which I thought was really helpful, was illustrative examples of claims which are not patentable. So I think that will be of immense help to you and your lawyers, who are drafting these applications. Moving on to remedies against infringement. For patents, you only get civil remedies. Criminal remedies are not included in the Act. So this is something to keep in mind if and when you are faced with an infringement issue. Again, you might recall that India released the draft national IPR policy. Again, this is the first of its kind and this has really picked up pace after Prime Minister Modi came into office in May 2014. So this document was put together by a very accomplished and prestigious think tank, and the policy essentially focuses on six to seven objectives, which includes awareness, legal frameworks, judiciary, and so on. And one of the many recommendations is that a specialist IP court should be set up in India to expedite the adjudication of IP cases. So again, the finalized version is currently awaited. It's been more than a year, but we've been told that the policy will, the finalized policy will come out soon. So we are eagerly awaiting that. Again, you might have heard of Make in India, and then that Startup India campaign by Prime Minister Modi. So as part of the Startup India campaign, a slew of incentives were announced for startups, and one of them was assistance with protecting intellectual property. So this is a document, again, that's available online on Patent Office's website. It's called Scheme for Facilitating Startups, Intellectual Property Protection. What this essentially is that the Patent Office will appoint facilitators who can file patent applications or trademark applications on behalf of startups, and the Patent Office will actually pay those facilitators. So you won't, as a startup, you won't have to incur that cost. So again, it's a good way forward, and the details are in the document. This is just a screen grab, just for your reference. IP fact sheets. I mentioned this earlier in my presentation. We developed, fact sheets for India. These are fact sheets for India, and again, easy to read. It's a quick refresher on how should you file, your applications in India. What are the key things to keep in mind? What happens if your claim gets rejected? What are the remedies that are available for infringement? So it's a good refresher. It's quick and easy to read. Again, recommend that you take a look. So if you are a UK business, what should you do, before you enter India? Register your IP. I think that's the first step. It sounds really obvious. It might also sound really cliched, but I think it's extremely important that you register your IP in India. And and there are international avenues that can sort of ease the process for you. For instance, like I said earlier, India is part of the Patent Cooperation Treaty, which means if you file your PCT application, you've already, it's a placeholder for you. Before you enter India in the national phase of the patent process. Similarly, for trademarks, India is signatory to the Madrid Protocol, and so is UK. So if you have a UK application, trademark application, then definitely go to India through the Madrid Protocol. It saves you money, it saves you time, and it saves you a lot of paperwork, frankly. Again, for IP, monitor the market, perform your due diligence regularly. Keep an eye on folks who might be copying your stuff or might be selling copycat products in the market. So monitor the market. Definitely make connections to existing networks of British businesses in India, such as the UK IBC, UKTI, British Business Group. And I'm sure you might be aware, UK IBC has 3 centers in India. One in Gurgaon, there's one in Mumbai, and there's one in Bangalore. So make sure that you are connected to those networks. You learn a lot from people who have done it already in India. British Business Group, again, has offices across India. I would recommend that you be on their mailing list so you get updates, or even if you happen to be in India, you can join one of their monthly meetings and sort of just learn from folks who have done it all. Be alert, when you're in India. But again, like I said, once you've registered your IP, you definitely have an upper hand when it comes to court battles, for instance. And you can, of course, reach out to me. I'm based in Mumbai. If you have any questions, in my capacity, unfortunately, I can't provide legal advice, but I can definitely, sort of signpost you or guide you and send you in the right direction. So with that, I think that's my contact information. Feel free to drop me a line, and I'd be happy to help you out. I guess that's the end of my presentation. Back to you, Ayana.
Many thanks for that excellent overview, Vijay. I will now ask some questions we received. The first question is, in a recent survey by the UK-India Business Council, around 16% of the respondents believed that the IP environment in India has improved in the last 18 months, while around 57% believed there has been no change. In your opinion, are the IP reforms in India in line with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's efforts to make it easier for foreign companies to do business in India?
Thank you, Aina. Thank you for the question. Definitely, I think, since Modi came into office in May 2014, a number of reforms have taken place, and the direction of travel for IP is definitely looking up. Like I said, the draft IPR policy was released in December 2014, and there have been a number of changes and reforms since then, including the revised guidelines for examination of computer-related inventions. There's been a discussion paper on FRAND that was released 2 days ago. So definitely a lot of activities. Similarly for trademark, trademark procedures, filing procedures, examining procedures. The patent office invited the public to comment on those revisions. So a lot of positive things happening, and I'm sure as the Make in India campaign and the Startup India campaign gather momentum, IP will continue to sort of be in the limelight.
Thank you, Vijay. The next question is, while your stay in India, have you ever felt that IP environment is better in certain states and probably not that good in some states, and any opinion or any feedback in this regard?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. When we think of IP in India, obviously you can't generalize because India itself is so diverse. So the north is different from the south and east is different from the west. I would say in terms of IP awareness, certain states are very good. So if I could drop names, Maharashtra is really good, very business friendly, very IP aware. Tamil Nadu is another state where IP is really on everybody's minds because obviously there's a booming, film industry there. And then, if you go up north, Delhi High Court is where all the IP battles are fought. So, folks in Delhi are quite aware about IP issues. So yeah, so the level of awareness is not uniform across India. It definitely varies.
Thank you, Dr. Iyer, and I believe you've covered really well because we haven't received any other question. So I'll just thank you once again for that excellent overview and interesting insights. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope this webinar was valuable to you. If you have any feedback or comments about today's session or a session that you'd want to see us do in the future, please feel free to get in touch. I would also like to invite you to visit our website and check for the webinars that we are organizing as part of our Access India series, a program designed to support UK businesses through short online sessions on a variety of topics. Our previous Access India webinars are also available to watch at any time. Thank you for joining us.